Hello, everyone, and welcome to KFC SuperCoach TV. I'm Al Payton in the Herald Sun with two massive guests to talk about what are we going to do with our teams before the first lockout of the season, which incredibly is in about 1 week from today, and add a few hours onto that. But we'll be stressing about we'll have the Carlton and Richmond teams, which will be nice a week from now. But we'll be stressing, waiting for all the other teams to drop, I guess. But we'll get straight into it because obviously there's plenty to discuss. We've just had a huge round of practice matches, which if you're anything like me, threw all my plans into disarray. So need some help to sort all that out. So joining us, as usual, from the Lair over in South Australia is the Phantom. Phantom, how's your team looking like? I mean, it seemed, from what I could tell, everything that happened just confirmed everything you'd already been telling us.
Well, yes, we'll mention a certain player a little bit later. I'm sure before SuperCoach Mumma rips apart my team as she does every year about this time, I reckon. But an interesting round of footy, a week to go, as you mentioned. We need another game. We're not going to get it. We have to make some big calls on some limited data, which I'm sure we'll get to. But exciting week to go. I think we're all ready.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, our very special guest is aka SuperCoach Mumma, who won KFC SuperCoach in 2021. So hopefully can give us some insights into how, serious players deal with the panic at this time of year. I mean, how are you feeling a week out? Em, is everything settled and ready to go, or is there a bit of disarray?
Oh, always just a little dash of disarray. My team had a serious operation on the weekend, which, it's not ideal. Like I would have, but there was just so many unknowns and everything. And the rookies, where did they go? I mean, we've got a couple, but seriously, I had to kind of change my team because I just really was worried about some of those rookies on field. So.
Well, off the top, Phantom, I mean, what's your take on that picture at the moment? We just saw today your rookie rankings have gone online on the Herald Sun and Advertiser and Code Sports. So are you still feeling pretty confident that there's a number of rookies we can start on field and fill our benches, or are there some concerns there?
I think at this point, before the teams ruin all our plans, which they may do, I think we've got enough on-field options, particularly in defence. We've spoken about what's available back there. But the problem is, I think there's not a lot of the basement price rookies that are going to be available. So we might have to spend a bit extra on our benches. Maybe a Will Phillips on your bench or Mateus Filippo on your forward bench if you need to. So I guess what the practice matches did show is that there is some value in that 200 to 300K bracket, even more than we might have thought a couple of weeks ago. So that maybe helps you out a little bit where you can save a bit of money on your field and then maybe spend a bit more on some of those elevated rookies because we might need to.
Is that your thoughts, Emmy? Does that bother you spending 150K or something on someone who's just going to be sitting on the bench?
No. I wanted. I had 4 kangaroo players before the weekend, and now I have 1. And I'm like, I need to get these players out of my team. So Will Phillips is. I actually have 2, so I still have 2. But Will Phillips is off the field. He's my M9, and I still have the the Cheezel in my team at the moment on field. But I also have Mateus and my M10, so I am looking pretty rich on the bench. But I've just I am spending the money. In 2021, we had Errol Gulden for 117,000. I just would love a player like that again for so cheap. It's just not going to happen.
Just quickly out, if I can, I see a lot of people jumping off. Will Phillips was a little disappointing in the practice match against the Dogs, but the Dogs really beat up on the Roos in the midfield. Phillips turned the ball over a little bit, which I think we might see that during the year. That's not his biggest strength. But again, he was third in the centre bounce rotation behind only Ben Cunnington and LDU. So he's got the role. They're going to give him the midfield time. So I think he'll be okay. So if you are out there jumping off Will Phillips, I've still got him high in my midfield rookie rankings. I've still got him on field. I'm still backing him in. Harry Sheezel's coming to my team as well, like Mumma's mentioned there. The halfback stint and the possible for Clarko to push him back there. He had 10 touches in the final term against the Dogs when he was moved there. I think he can do some crazy things and things that not other players can do in the forward line. But I think what those halfback stints might do is maybe raise that scoring floor when he's having a quiet day, as a lot of small forwards do in KFC SuperCoach and in the AFL. If you can go back there and get some footy, you might raise that floor and not pump out the 20 or 30 that we've seen in the past.
So when we're talking about those rookies, especially the midfield, I mean, looking at my team still needs a bit of surgery, but I've currently got Phillips and Cam McKenzie on the field. He's 180k at the Hawks and looked fantastic on the weekend. Do you think you can get away with that, or does that push you maybe a bit thin on the bench? I'm sort of trying to fill it up with maybe some of those deaf mid rookies that we seem to have a few of those at least floating around to hopefully get us by in the midfield as well.
Yeah. Oh, you go. Me?
Oh no, okay. No, I was just going to say that I would love a deaf mid link. I don't actually have one at the moment because I've just gone so deep in my mids at the moment. But it's just whether Chesser, I still think he's still worth doing it. But yeah, it's just that balance. You go, Pat.
Oh, there's and on top of that, there's also the Blues defenders, Alex Chincotta as well, 102k defender mid. You would know, obviously, John Ralph wrote yesterday that Lockie Cowan and Chincotta both in the mix to play. We sort of thought maybe, from what we've seen in the preseason, that one of them would come into the Zach Williams role, but both might get a go. So that would be great news for KFC SuperCoaches. Play Lockie Cowan on your defence bench if you need, and then Chincotta is your 102k defender midfielder on the midfield bench, all going well next week.
Yeah, and Charlie Constable's the other one who's a deaf mid, who you could potentially put there, or we want him on the field because his scoring actually looks reasonable. Em, you said you were concerned about some of the depth of those on-field rookies. Who are the guys that you're trying to get off? Is Will Phillips sort of the main one, or are there others that we need to be aware of?
Oh no, they just McKenna's out of my team. I'm a bit concerned about. I don't know what you guys think, but I've still got Wilmot on the bench. But if both the Carlton boys play, I might change that up as well. But I was just worried about some of the scoring potential really. But I've got Constable on my field as my D6, so. And I've actually just moved money around to actually spend up money on Finn Callahan, for example. I haven't gone on the Flanders bandwagon, but there is also another person that I haven't been on the train. I've just seen the train passing by, and now I am on the Errol Gulden train as well. So I'm on, but I'm on.
We've gone this far and we haven't really talked about Errol Gulden, so we better talk about him. Phantom, he's your man, your boy. You've been talking about him for probably 3 years, but this pre-season you were hot on him as a breakout contender, and obviously anyone who watched that game on the weekend would know what you're talking about. 45 disposals and 3 goals, 188 KFC SuperCoach points in a practice match. Does it make him a must-have? We know there are a few players who didn't play in that game. Callum Mills, obviously, for the Swans, and then a couple of Blues midfielders were out, and he probably won't get as prominent a role in the home and away season. But he doesn't have to score 188 points every week to be a good pick. So, I mean, I guess at what is he, about 470k? Is he? Yep. Are we picking him as a keeper in the forward line? Do we think he can be a top 6, top 8 forward?
Yeah, well, just firstly, I think what it does show, I think Errol Gulden was in about 4% of teams last week. So it shows not a lot of people actually do listen to me. So they might now after they've seen that. But back in January, when I did the breakout series, had predicted him to average 104 in 2023. So I'm going to stick by that prediction. 104 would be definite keeper in the forward line. He's not going to go out and, as you mentioned, 45 and 3 every week. I don't think anyone will do that in the AFL this year as teams tighten up when the real stuff starts. But I think you mentioned on the official AFL KFC SuperCoach podcast during the week about Errol started in the centre bounce last week when Callum Mills was there, kicked the first goal. I think I wrote that he's Sydney's smartest player. So I think it doesn't really matter. He only needs a small uptick in CBAs. I think we've seen his scoring ceiling as a pure forward in those first 2 games of his career, 125 and 132 maybe, I think, in a couple of years ago. So gets involved in a lot of scoring chains, finds a teammate in a good position to then hit the scoreboard. So Doesn't need to be the main centre bounce man there to average 104, which is why I sort of made that prediction, and I'm sticking by that now. So a premium keeper at 470 is get on board.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think I've caught the train as well. But and where does this sort of leave us in the forward line when you have Josh Dunkley? I think pretty much everyone's got locked in there. Taranto looks a great pick. Connor Rosie looks incredible. Canelio, I think, can definitely outscore his price. And then you've got your Fife and Zeeble and Flanders we've mentioned, and then down into the rookies where Toby McLean's super popular, although he was a little bit underwhelming on the weekend. We'll get to some cats like Asava, Radigalia, and Tanner Bruin you could throw in that mix as well. So, I mean, how many of these guys, how do we structure up that forward line? Because something else that is just in the back of my mind is that last year, come round 6 or round 12, we had to get Marcus Bontempelli as a forward. We had to get Luke Parker as a forward, and Darcy Cameron emerged as well that we hadn't seen coming. So do we need to make sure there's a couple of spots there for, I'm not sure who's going to pop up this year, but there's a few big names that look like we might get as potential forwards. So we don't want to sort of stack it too heavily this early, but it's hard when there are so many potentially good picks.
Yeah, I've had 4 premium forwards. I mean, Gulden, he's my 4th. So, but it's been the battle for the whole preseason, really. At the moment, I've got the three big. I mean, Gulden's big as well, but I've ditched Cogs. Because he's the closest to his price. I know he still has potential, and that little knee knock of his, I just needed to use that money elsewhere, and I feel quite comfortable that I can definitely get him in. If Gawn or Petrarca come into our forward lines, that's just going to be game changing. So I am really, and I foresee that I'm going to be using, depending what our mid rookies are doing, but I foresee that we could actually have a little bit more fluid, like mid and forward, and hopefully a floating M9 F7 would be amazing. I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I'm not starting Zeeble. He was amazing 2 years ago, but he was $100,000 less, 2 years younger. He's over the 30-year-old threshold. Someone's joked that I'm being a bit of a Leo DiCaprio-esque in SuperCoach. Except 30-year-old, that's quite high. Cunnington's the same. I love him. And even though Fife is actually still 29, his durability really concerns me. So I'm not starting them. And so that's kind of cut a few off my list. So that's made it quite easy. But that's what my plan is at the moment.
What's your forward line look like, Fant? I think I've got Gulden at F4 as well. I think that's going to be a fairly popular move.
Yep, that's where he's been. For my forward line hasn't actually changed a lot. Probably the position on the ground where it hasn't changed. Gulden at F4, obviously playing around with a little bit of difference after that with the combinations of McLean and Pedler and Filippo and Sheasel, working out which ones to have on field and how many you can fit in. And I think I said to someone here last week before Gulden went big, I'm committed to Gulden, but you could use that F4 spot for another one of those expensive forward rookies. It would be ideal to use that, but I can't get rid of either. I can't get rid of Dunkley, Taranto, Rosie, and Gulden, like you guys have mentioned. So I just can't do that. So I think it's going to look like that. Just might depend. Do you play a Filippo or someone in the midfield as well, potentially Sheasel? Obviously only a forward only, so you've got to play him in the forward line, but there's a few mid forwards there that you could swing up and use on ground. So at the top, it's pretty set. What I do underneath is probably what needs a bit of work.
What about Toby McLean? What did you think of his preseason form?
Bit of a concern, especially the first half. Didn't get near it in the first half. I think finished with 45, 46 points, 10 or so touches or 8 touches in the second half. He doesn't need to play as a pure midfielder. They confirmed that he's not part of that on-ball rotation, but at the price, he doesn't need to be to score okay. So I think we saw what he did when he came back in the final last year over in Perth after that long injury layoff, scored a KFC SuperCoach ton. A lot of people do forget that. So I think he'll be okay. He's not going to start on ball and get those CBA minutes. But I think in the fringes of the packs and across half forward, I think he can definitely do enough still in my team and probably won't be going anywhere.
Yeah, I think I might have booted him in one of my latest moves, but I'll be going back and having a look at that. Nodding as well.
Yeah, he's not in my current team. I was nasty.
Ruthless. What's your team looking like, Al?
Oh, that match was with that North Bulldogs match, I'm like out. Delete. I might change it though. I don't know. I have a theory, and I don't know whether you think this is a little bit crazy, but when team sheets come, it's going to depend whether they're actually the players are named on the field or named as on the bench. Do you think there's anything in that at all? Do you think that's just a bit too random? They don't actually put their bottom four on the bench.
Well, the other factor this year, which I don't know, Phantom, whether you can correct me on this, but do we actually know how the teams are going to work in terms of knowing who the sub's going to be? I kind of assume they'll probably we'll get a 5-person bench named, on the Thursday night, and then it'll be an hour before the game. One of them will be the sub. So that could make it even more painful.
Yeah. Or it might have to come from the emergencies.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be better.
That would be better.
They might name 22 emergencies. One of them will be the sub an hour before the game, I believe, which would be ideal.
Yeah.
Says Jake Brady's commented here, to your question. Team sheet I wouldn't even bother looking at and worrying. It's at times even random. Now, I do agree with that, and I think there'd be some clubs that would do it as well, but I think there's so much difference that as a whole, you probably might be looking too much into it. They're not always going to name their 22nd player or 23rd player as the last man on the bench. And we know what they name on Thursday night. It doesn't have to be the same what they name an hour and a half before the game as well. So
Chris
that can change. Yes. Tanner, now we've seen a few predicted 23s floating around, and in a full strength Geelong lineup, will Tanner Bruin play?
I want to put my house on it. I don't know one way or the other. I'm sorry, I can't look. I think he's great. Look, and the thing is, Chris Scott, literally, if it's in his mind, he'll play 23. He'll play 23. But it's the rotating door that I'm really worried about, because I thought that Max Holmes and Atkins would be more in there, get a bit more of that middle. So for me, but Bruin, look, he's definitely up on the mix. It's just I have Jordan Clark post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Yeah.
So I just Radically is not in my team either at the moment. So
here's the other one I was going to ask about.
Yeah.
Not confident where he fits in the team, or he's scoring
potential really for the price, and the fact that Matt McAndrew Ruck was a bit of a I don't think he's gonna I don't want him on my team. So that Ruck link is kind of gone. So I've replaced both of them. But we'll see. Definitely see. Look, Tanner Bruin, he's one person that I'm prepared to do a swapperoo if I have to. But I want to see, he would be my round 3. I'm going to be chicken and just I would put him in my team. I'd rather see him for two rounds than risk it at the start.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
I like that.
Em's written a column, which we'll see very soon online, but just to preview one line in there, I think you did say that there's so many of these mid prices that we're not going to get them all right. And we do have those trades early on that you can potentially use, round 2 and 3, and even a boost if you need one, to just make sure we're on the right ones, because it's almost impossible to get it 100% correct. We've just talked about the rucks briefly. Can we reveal who our starting rucks are at this stage? Because it's obviously been one of the biggest headaches of the preseason. Matthew Murphy, one of our long-time followers and watchers here, says Marshall and Grundy, sticking with Brodie Grundy after I think he scored 80 points from 50-50 ruck split and 3 goals against the Tigers. So to me, that was a bit of a red flag, that if he can kick 3 goals and still only post 80 is a bit of a worry. But where do you sit? There's obviously a lot of question marks over most of the rucks this year. Em, who have you got at the moment?
Well, I don't know. It's not controversial, but I've got Cameron back in my team, And I know because yes, he did ruck split, with Cox, but he still scored 90, and that's what I just need from him. And look, he might not be a keeper, but that's okay. I just need some more information. And he's really, really lovely, Cox. But I don't think he might last the whole team, the whole year. I don't think. I think Cameron could get the ruck share back. So, but I'm happy to take that risk.
They did bring in Dan McStay, so they've sort of got him as a backup.
Yeah, I just still think
they don't play all three.
Yeah. Oh, all three would be better. But no, I'm sticking with Cameron for now. It's because of his price, and it means I can do some other things in my team.
What about you, Phantom?
Oh, I'm still a bit unsure, but at the moment, as it stands right now, I've got Max Gawn back in with Marshall. I wrote before the games about the split. Brodie Grundy, his strengths don't lie in what he does as a forward and how he marks in attack. But what he showed on the weekend, he definitely can do that. And what we've seen over the past 2 practice matches is that, it might be more of a 50-50 split. It won't be a 70% Brodie Grundy rucking and Max Gawn doing everything else around the ground. We saw Gawn at his best as well, marking the footy behind the ball, against the Tigers like he did at times last year. So sure, there might be a few more low scores than we've seen in the past from Gawn, but there's going to be the big ones. We know that when he gets on a tear like he did on the weekend. So does that equate to a better average than most others? Maybe in the end. Tim English is obviously the other one there, but can we trust him again? He's been a little bit injury interrupted again over summer, but Luke Beveridge, I think, came out after the game on the weekend and said he's sort of ready to go and stronger than he's ever been. So I'm still not certain there. The other thing with Gawn as well, could he be a forward by round 6? So could you swing him there? And if he doesn't quite work out that he's going to be in the top few in the ruck, then he's probably still going to be a nice F6 to finish the year if it doesn't all work out. So it's a lot of money to spend, but given I've sort of got a few of these bargains in around the place, got him in at the moment. What about you, Al?
Yeah. I suppose 2 currently is Rowan Marshall. I think, do we all have Marshall? He's looking like a great pick this year at only 506k. But I've got Sean Darcy in my other ruck slot. It's a risk. I had him last year, and he was very frustrating. Always gets those little injury niggles, and he'd sort of disappear for patches in the game. And he ended up with an average of just over 100, which was obviously well under what we thought he was capable of. But we know he can score really big, and I don't think having Luke Jackson over there will necessarily hurt him too much. I mean, he had to play with Lloyd Meek for sort of 7 or 8 games. It wasn't a heap last year, but when that happened, Meek sort of was in the ruck a lot, and Darcy had to play forward. Whereas this time, I think Jackson will be the main. He'll play mostly forward, maybe even a bit, on the wing or on the ball as a ruck rover type. I don't think he'll eat in too much to Darcy's hit outs, especially in the centre bounces. So, he scored about 130 on the weekend. That was without Jackson in the team. So, obviously, a little asterisk on that. But, I like him at the moment for, 560 odd K. But again, like we're all saying, not totally locked in, and I'm open to potentially making some moves before round 1. And, someone put Jared Witts in there, and it's sort of hard to argue. Maybe he's just the safest pick. He sort of isn't that super exciting, especially when we're paying a lot more than we had to last year, but he doesn't have any competition really for the ruck role at the Suns, and he looks like he could just roll out and score, 105, 110 again, which might be a little bit under sort of his price, I guess. But if you can just lock in that score every week, maybe that's just the sensible play. And he has that little bonus of the bye in round 13 or 14 when there's only the 2 teams on the bye. So you sort of have him for all the rest of the bye rounds, which could be handy for any Geelong or Gold Coast players that we've still got at that stage. How many cats have you got, Em?
Oh, at the moment I have 1.
Is he your boyfriend? not real boyfriend, but footy boyfriend, Tom Stewart.
He's my boyfriend. Stewart. I've actually, don't tell him this, but I have actually debated whether he is actually value for money. I have Doherty as well. So I am tempted. A lot of people are on the Ridley train because they really like the price point and like what they saw in the that he might actually get that similar role that he had, a little bit more freedom in 2 years ago. He was one that I started that really helped me. But I'm watching him from afar. But he's the one that I would do the switcheroo if Stewart pumps out a 90 round 1, round 2, and Ridley explodes. That may be one. So I might drop him, but he's in my team at the moment.
Yeah, just quickly on Ridley. I mean, I think he definitely has potential. We know he can do it. Those big scores. Just if people didn't see the game on the weekend, it sort of all played into his hands. Really, he played fantastically and scored really well. But Essendon was very poor. St Kilda don't really have anyone in the forward line, so he didn't really have to play on anybody. In, as a sort of a one-on-one matchup, which he sometimes has to do depending on who they're playing. And I think it was like the second quarter, the wind was blowing down that end, and the Saints just kept banging it in there to sort of nobody, and he was just marking absolutely everything. So he played fantastic, but he might not get those sort of friendly conditions every week. But what does your defence look like, Phantom? Are you going with two of the big 600K guys? Can sort of Nick Dacos squeeze in there? And then, even if I think that's who I'm going with, two of the 600s, but then I'm chopping and changing all the time. I can't decide between Sicily and Doherty looks great, and Tom Stewart, very reliable. He can put up those massive scores. Probably Sinclair's the one I'd be steering away from based on that game on the weekend. Seems like Nazaya Wanganeen-Malira is getting a few kickouts and maybe taking some of his points. But, all the other guys look like they could be fantastic picks. And Jordan Dawson, of course, your boy as well.
Yep, he's been back in and out of my team. Just the way he's been marshalling the Crows' defence down there. They go to him all the time, and we know how good he is in the air as well, and he's going to stay back there. So obviously the only concern is does some more attention come potentially for him? I've had Sicily in my team most of the year, but then it's like you said, it's been a bit of a revolving door. Had Dacos, had Hayden Young, who I still want to go with Hayden Young. Obviously a bit quieter in the preseason games without Luke Ryan as well on the weekend, which was a bit of a concern. We know the Dockers play a really good system defence and don't really rely on or look for one player all the time. But Justin Longmuir has spoken highly of Hayden Young. We know how good he is by foot and attacking the other way. So I still think he'll be okay. I still think he can average 3 figures. It's just whether I can fit him in over a 600K plus guy. Am I sure enough? That's the question I'm weighing up at the moment, because there's a lot of value, as we've spoken about. Elliot Yeo hasn't moved. Liam Jones is one we haven't spoken about on the show. He's made his way into 28K. Em spoke about dumping Connor McKenna. Can Liam Jones do a better job for about 60K? I think it is 8 intercept marks for him against the Roos. Is that who you brought in for McKenna?
Yeah, yep. And he is 31. Bum, bum, bum.
Oh,
I know. Look out.
Exceptions.
This is my exception to the rule. Liam Jones, who would have thunk it? But I feel because he's a cash cow, and I feel like that money is an okay risk point, because you can always you can always downgrade or upgrade a little bit. There's a few value options around that price point. And there's always, really annoyingly some rookies that appear round 2, round 3 when it's too early to up, like to downgrade, or so there would be options around. But I'm really happy with his role. And he only has to average don't know the math, 65, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So it's really safe. So yes, he has replaced McKenna in my team. So I've got Constable. And I've got Gimby as well. I think it's a must-have defender rookie.
Yep, 99 KFC SuperCoach points or thereabouts in just over half a game. Team highs, clearances, and contested possessions, definitely. So definitely one to lock in on your field.
Yeah, and I've just flipped it off the screen, but with a sort of question there, and I've seen a few teams going around with maybe just one of those primo defenders, even Dacos there, or even people who are going really out there and picking Elliot Yeo as their D1. What are your thoughts on that? I guess, when you're trying to weigh up, would you pick a second defender who's 600K, which is a lot to pay for a defender, but someone like a Tom Stewart or a Doherty versus maybe Jack Steele in the midfield who's around the same price. I just sort of feel good midfielders come around during the year. We could get maybe a Zach Merritt or someone at a bit of a cheaper price, but those defenders don't tend to drop that much. So is it safer to try and lock in a couple from the start? And what do you think?
Yeah, no, well, I am, because I have thought to myself, what if the top six, so I looked it up. So the top sixth defender last year was Shannon Hearn, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And I think it was like 102, 104 average. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But that was the sixth defender. So if we're going to we had all these really high scoring defenders, and I'm like, I need to start two of them. So I'm not behind. So and I feel like Doherty is, someone mentioned it before. He looks amazing. I'm really confident that he's going to possibly increase his money. Like once that might drop back, but I feel like he's really good value to start with. But I did think about this is going to be really hard, and that's why I've actually got 3 premium mids as well, because I just feel like I'm starting Laird and I've got Neil and I've got Bont, because there is value, yes, but you need these top guns in your team eventually, so you might as well start with a couple to make it a little bit easier, because they're hopefully not going to drop lots of money.
Yeah, that's my take. And I mean, the other one is obviously causing a lot of discussion. Phantom is Nick Dacos. He got tagged in a practice match, which is pretty rough. But is that something we'll see a lot more this year? And maybe we're trying to look for reasons who to pick and who not to pick. Is that one we could maybe just see how he goes with that before bringing him in?
Yeah, you got to be picky, as we know at this time of year. So you look for little things, and that might be one of them. You can wait. Every team's not going to tag. We know Finn McGuinness was tagging teammates in the internal trial. So they're obviously the Hawks. Whoever the Hawks are playing, watch out when you're looking at your VC and Cs to start the year. All teams aren't going to do it. Dacos is good enough and smart enough to get around and play another position and win the ball elsewhere. So I think he'll be okay, but you're right. If you're looking for a little thing to go with someone else, maybe it is it. And then if he does explode out the box, to jump on before round 3.
Yeah, I don't think his price is going to sort of get away from us, over 600K super quickly. Like if we can see it's happening and he's on for a massive year, then we should be able to still get him, hopefully. Although it's easy, we say that about a lot of players and you can't trade them all in, obviously. But yeah, probably before we go, we'll have to wrap up things soon. It's been a really good discussion. But the one topic that we haven't really covered off is we sort of just briefly mentioned it, is all these amazing 200, 300K players that suddenly – we already knew about a few of them, and then a bunch more put up their hand on the weekend. And Jake's here mentioned Will Setterfield is another one. James Warple had a fantastic game. We've touched on Flanders. Finn Callahan, I think MU said you've got him as well. So, I mean, how many of these can we squeeze into our team? If they're all going to make 150K, which, we think they can if they're going to only need to average 85 or something, I mean, is there a limit how many you can actually pick when we start to think, well, in 5-6 weeks, what do we want to be doing with these guys?
Yeah, no, I've had this conversation. I've seen a few people actually have quite a thinner midfield, and start with Hopper at M4, and then have a wet, have a Setterfield, and then even a Warple. Like, it's just, you can cram them all in. I only have Hopper, and then I have Callahan for me, and that was just really because I just to boost those mid stocks and everything, as I said. But I've only got the one or two at the moment. I think it's personal preference, but last year I had a really weak midfield and I really regretted it. I think and so that's on the back of my mind, that I really want to have still a little bit of a bigger engine room. So that's the only reason. I just think that's personal preference. You just go for the risk profile that you want and you feel comfortable. Just don't worry what other people are doing. You do what you think is best. It's your team, your decision.
Yes, but having said all that, Phantom, what do you think I should do?
Well, I think also with that, given there's so many options, there's going to be a lot of ways ways you can get out of trouble as well. If the one you pick goes wrong, there's a few options to go to. Some of them are going to fire. So That gives you a bit of assurance that it might not all go pear-shaped. I've got Finn Callaghan in there. Setterfield very much plays a game suited to KFC SuperCoach if he's allowed to play that inside midfield role, which he is, by the looks of it, going to be at the Bombers. Price is still pretty good, I think, obviously, from what he can average in that role, but it's hard to fit him in. I think there's still more better value in your James Warple, despite what he does with the ball. I think he's going to get... It is quality over quantity for him, but I think he's going to get enough of it in a contest and tackle as well that is going to outweigh some of his poor use by foot. So I like him at 309k. Finn Callaghan's obviously a great price. I think I like those two ahead of a Will Setterfield, 348k. Yes, he's still a stepping stone, but it is that bit more. I think there's a bit more value below him.
So could you start? I think most of us have got Jacob Hopper. I mean, and a Warple and a Callaghan type, because then you want to get an Ashcroft on the field. Is that too many, or I guess the people who back in the mid-price strategy, the thinking behind it is that you get more points from those guys having them early rather than someone else who has to play a rookie in that position. But then are they going to make enough cash, and then can you it's all about sort of turning them into primos as quick as you can. Is that a viable way to do it?
Yeah, I think you might, like Em's done, push Will Phillips to the bench and go a bit more expensive on your bench and play those mid prices. So I think you can do that. Might let you go with a Gawn or an English in the ruck when you've been trying to go with a Darcy Cameron. So as long as you can use that extra money to do that. But you're right, the value picks, we spoke about it and what happened last year. There wasn't as many, but I always reference the Jake Bowie thing, what he did in my team. Obviously had that massive 150-point score against the Suns, I think it was early, and he became Sam Doherty by round 6 or 7 with extra trades and a boost. So these guys, hopefully, as you mentioned, going to get you some more points on the field and then become a premium quicker, because everyone's going to go quicker this year. Some of them did it last year. Some of them got out early in the lead, but I think everyone's going to catch on. It's going to be upgrade season a lot earlier in 2023.
Yeah, I suppose the flip side, just to balance that out, is a mid-pricer that I had last year, like a Jared Berry, who looked fantastic in the preseason. I think he scored about 150 in a practice match. And then, I mean, he was fine. I wouldn't call him a total dud pick, but it was a bit more of a slow burn from him. He'd score a 60 and then an 80, and that's the kind of thing you might get from some of these sort of mid-price guys that we're looking at. So you sort of don't want too many of them in your team as well. So but as Sam said, I think one of the really exciting things this year is there's no obvious correct way to do it. There's someone might succeed by picking Elliot Yeo at D1 and having all these rookies in defence, and someone else goes really well by picking a bunch of mid prices or more like a guns and rookies. So lots of different ways to attack it this year, which I think is fantastic. But we've got one more week to mull all this over and make heaps more changes to our team. Or if you're just happy, you can sit back and relax, put your feet up. But we'll be back here in a week to go through all those last minute panic moves, but plenty of content on the website and podcasts and videos and everything to come. So go and check all that out. heraldsun.com.au, advertiser.com.au, and Code Sports, of course, where you can get all your SuperCoach content there it's a $1 subscription for the first 3 months. So jump
and
on
you get
that.
SuperCoach Plus with that hour, and you get SuperCoach Plus with the Code Sports subscription.
I think you do. That's right, isn't it?
You do. Yep. Huge
you do.
deal.
So you get all the SuperCoach Plus stuff as well, and that's live points when the season starts as well, which is one of the big things that we love. So, but Em, thank you for jumping on. Great to have your thoughts as always. As I said, Em's column will be online in the next couple of days. Just depends how long it takes me to build it, but that'll be up very soon. Raymond, just we'll wait a week on that, please. We'll
well done, Raymond.
Calm down, Carlton supporters. But been a fantastic chat. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll catch you again very soon.
Bye. See ya.